Two things. One, after Tom spoke, I don't know whether I should just roll this up and throw it in the crowd and speak from the heart. And also, Neil, I thought you promised me a teleprompter tonight. Anyway, first, I'd like to thank Dick Gutschall for that wonderful introduction. Dick has been a good friend of mine for most of my adult life. In fact, Dick is an accomplished marathoner himself, and when I would come home to visit, he was usually the first call that I would make late Friday night to schedule a 20-mile run with, usually sometime early on Sunday morning. Typically what that meant is we would leave his house in near Mansion Park at about 6 o'clock, run down through Scotch Valley and back. And contrary to what Dick might say, if he were here tonight, he would say it was a cakewalk for me. And that's not necessarily true. They were always very challenging. In fact, I found out later that there was a rumor floating around that nobody wanted to train with Dick in Altoona because he ran so hard. So I'm assuming that he looked as much forward to those runs with me as I did with him. I'd like to thank Dick for his friendship through the years, for those 20-mile runs, and for all the encouragement that he had given me. I was very fortunate to have grown up in Altoona and spent my formative years here. And I was also very fortunate to start my young athletic career with two very, very fine coaches. The first coach that I'd like to thank is my high school cross-country coach and fellow Hall of Famer, Angie Giosa. Angie was my first real inspiration and role model. I remember early on when I was an athlete under him how impressed I was by the fact that not only could he tell us what the workout was each day, many times he actually ran it with us. He was also a great role model to me and a yardstick by which I established or determined how my career was going. In fact, I remember when I first went away to Westchester, I had found out that while he was at Slippery Rock, he had run 9:27 for 2 miles. That immediately became my goal, something I achieved by the end of my sophomore year, and then many years went on to run much faster. I also know that Angie was one of my biggest advocates for being inducted into the Hall of Fame, and it took me a while to find him tonight, but I believe he's back here on my left shoulder. And he was such a big proponent of my becoming part of that Hall of Fame that I'd like to thank him for that, tell him how much I miss him and how much I appreciate what he did for me in my career. So thank you, Angie Giosa. The next coach that I'd like to thank is a coach that I had in a sport that I'm really not being recognized for here tonight. And that's my high school wrestling coach, who I'm so pleased that I heard is here tonight, Marty Rusnak. Marty Rusnak was probably one of the greatest motivators that I ever had in my life as a coach. In fact, when I think back, Marty Rusnak, when I had him in high school, was the Bobby Knight of wrestling. He would throw chairs, he would slap us on the face before we went out on the mat, he would break trophies in practice, and scream and yell at us the entire time we were out there. Something that probably didn't work for everybody, but it worked for me. I also, to this day, remember a sign that was on the wall of our wrestling gym. And the words went something like this: life's battles don't always go to the faster or stronger man, but sooner or later, the fellow who wins is the fellow who thinks he can. I can't tell you, as corny as that is, how many times I thought of those words before major races. Marty was such a great motivator that in my senior year in a sport that I had made varsity for the first time, and not on a regular basis because I had to wrestle off almost every week with a young man by the name of Steve Orndorff, who sometimes beat me and started in front of me, that I tied a state champ, a gentleman by the name of Dave Clark from Clearfield. I didn't belong on the same mat with him. It was Marty that convinced me that I could beat the world. And I want to thank Marty Rusnak for instilling that motivation in me at such a young age, and that certainly has contributed to my success as an athlete through the years. I know you're over here somewhere, Marty, but thank you with all my heart. We've all had pivotal times in our life, and I had one during my senior year in high school. At the time, I had pretty much given up on going to college. I did not run fast enough to garner any athletic awards. My parents certainly couldn't afford to send me to school. My dad worked in the railroad at the time and was probably off work more than he was on work. But about this time, almost 45 years ago to the day, I got a call from an individual that encouraged me to apply to college, to seek out my guidance counselor and apply for whatever financial aid might be available. He eventually got me an interview with a gentleman by the name of Herb Lee at Westchester State College for a special program called the Higher Education Opportunity Program. Tonight, I'd like to thank that individual who was with us. Also, I want to tell you that he's responsible for me leaving Altoona and going to school. My dad probably never forgot him for that. But I really, really appreciate what he's done to me, and that phone call probably changed my life. My cousin sitting at table 3 here, Tom Clapper. The last 2 people that I'd like to thank are members of my immediate family. My daughter, Jillian, I'd like to thank, who you've all heard that I lost about 2 years ago at the very young age of 28. Jillian was a real inspiration to me because she accomplished so much with so little. She was born into the world premature, with Down syndrome, yet she blossomed into a very sensitive, kind, and beautiful young lady that any father would be proud of. She was the one thing in my life that no matter how bad my running was going or how difficult the training was, that I could think of and look at, and everything just got so much better. I know that she's here with me in spirit. I want to thank her and tell her I love her and I miss her. Being a good athlete, or being good at anything in life, I mean really good at it, requires a lot of selfishness. The hours of training, the hours, especially if you have your family away from your family and competing. And in my case, I became an athletic director, and you talk to any athletic director and they'll tell you that you pretty much watch other people's children grow up. This individual also kept our family afloat financially and held 2 jobs while I attended graduate school full-time and continued to pursue my athletic dreams. The person that I speak of is my teammate, my partner in life, my beautiful wife, who's going to kill me for this, who I affectionately call Scoob. Thank you for all the support through the years. I love you. And finally, I'd like to thank God for blessing me with the talent that I have and sending all those people that I mentioned tonight into my life and many others that planted seeds and helped me develop that talent. Without those gifts, none of this would have ever been possible. As an athlete, I've been very fortunate to have been able to travel through much of this great country and many parts of the world, something that I could only imagine as a young man growing up in Altoona. But I've always felt that there's no place like coming home. And now, after being recognized by my hometown, those homecomings are going to be all that much sweeter in the future. I'd like to thank the Hall of Fame committee for bestowing this great honor upon me. I'd like to congratulate the other inductees here this evening, and may God bless you and have a good evening.